Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Replimat, a Star Trek podcast in which two nerds watch Star Trek DS9 in chronological order, for that is obviously the only way in which we can watch it. That would make any sense anyway. The nerds in question are, over there we have the truth teller Tim.
Hello. And over there we have the apocryphal andyfrankhamallen.
Oh no, am I telling the truth? Well, now we never know who's being honest. But today we have episode 8 of season 2 of Deep Space Nine, which is Necessary Evil. Written by Peter Allen Field again, directed by James L. Conway again. They obviously have their returning names now. And first transmitted on the 14th of November 1993. But before we do all that, Tim, dare I ask, how has your week been?
Well, my week has suddenly got a lot better because I just realised that last week when I didn't look up the broadcast date, I said I reckon it must have been early November 1993, and if this was broadcast 14th,
it would have been about the 7th.
Yes, then I was right. So, my week has been as terrible as they always are. So we don't need to go into that. There have been a few bright moments. This is one of them, of course. This is always one of them.
What are your bright moments then?
I watched a couple of episodes of Bad Batch again. I'm still enjoying that. Just dipping into it now and again. I'm still enjoying Ahsoka, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And I have received.
Oh, he has a prop.
I've treated myself to a couple of things. I shall go.
It's not so easy, is it?
It's terribly difficult. This. So we have Catherine Mansfield's short stories. Have you heard of Catherine Mansfield?
Never. Well, not to my knowledge. I probably have.
She died very young. She was only 34 when she died. She was a contemporary of Virginia Woolf, and Virginia Woolf was very. She was very envious or jealous, according to the blurb of Catherine Mansfield. So they are modernist era short stories, which
rivals.
I read a number of them years ago, and it's a book that I had to part with years ago. So it's something I've picked up again this week. So they're all written, published around the sort of 1920s. So that kind of high modernist period of Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, and so forth. That which is a literary period that I love. The other treat which I got myself, which I think is possibly going out of print, so I managed to find an unopened copy on eBay, is The Mask of the Red Death. With by Edgar Allan Poe, with
Vincent Price.
Vincent Price.
Hold that thought. If I knew that you wanted to get a copy of that, I don't have it on Blu-ray, but I do have it on DVD.
Ooh.
And I really didn't think much of it at all. I only got it because I wanted to see the inspiration for Massacre Mandragora, of course.
Yes, of course.
If I'd known, you should have told me. I could have given you my copy, because honestly, I'm not going to watch it again.
No, but it's a film I've wanted to watch for a while. It was on my Amazon wishlist for ages, and one of those random things earlier in the week. I just thought, I'll just have a look on my wish list. It just seemed a random thing to do at the time. And I noticed that it wasn't available anymore. And I thought, oh no, it must be one of these small distributors that's gone under or something. And I found a decent priced copy on eBay. So it's a film I've wanted to watch for a while. I love those old camp horrors. I love a bit of Vincent Price and stuff as well. So we've got a lot of Hammers downstairs, and the Amicus films, the portmanteau horrors, where they've got lots of little short stories, things like Dr. Terror's House of Horror and stuff. I love all of that. It's wonderful. Yeah. So that's my treats for myself this week, because I keep having these really shitty, crappy weeks.
You do.
And so got short stories. Which are some of which I've read before, some of which I haven't. They'll be good to just kind of pick up and dip into now and again.
Most definitely.
Nice camp old horror film to watch. So that'll be my Saturday night.
Hey.
But yeah, there we go. That's really my week. Oh,
Oh,
And I had a flu jab last Saturday,
oh, you
which I
did.
mentioned.
Yes,
I
you
did.
did. What
And
have you
then
had
on
this week?
Sunday was really exciting. I got a new pair of slippers and I had my eyes tested.
Oh, the joys of being middle
I
aged,
know,
right?
and my eyes have got the optician told me what I probably already knew, which is my eyesight's got worse.
Right.
So £100 later, and I will have a couple of new pairs of glasses to pick up in a few weeks' time, which
Yeah, that
won't
happens
be
every time you go to
vastly,
the bloody opticians, isn't it?
I
Last
know,
time I went, I got two new glasses too.
they won't be vastly different to these. So our listeners won't notice at all. Our viewers may notice.
Because they can
We'll see
see.
when they happen. When it happens, I probably won't draw attention to it because I'm not vain like that. I'll just allow people to notice, in their own sweet time.
I'm
And if they
sure.
want to compliment me on how attractive I am, that's up to them. I don't feel
Please
any
note,
obligation.
listener, viewer, he
Viewer,
absolutely will mention this when he gets them. So even the listeners will know.
indeed.
I may
So
get I might get Adrian to redraw that picture so you've got your new specs on it.
right. Oh, he'll be thrilled. I'm sure he'll be
That's
thrilled.
another 150 quid. He won't mind. He'd be like, yeah, cool, 150 quid. All right, cool. But yeah,
So
cool.
yes, so that has been my week, and I've got my new slippers on at the moment, and they're
Oh,
really
let's see.
comfortable.
Let's see.
Oh, for God's sake, I
Come
can't get
on.
my leg up that far.
Come on.
Yeah, they
You're taking your
are.
slipper off, are you?
I'm taking my slipper off.
Oh, they're proper old man
Yeah,
slippers, aren't they?
yeah, they are proper old man slippers. I know. Yeah, they are, and they're really comfortable.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Well done, mate. Well done.
can't beat a pair of old man slippers.
Were they from
When the
Timu or that's
shoes out.
very popular right now?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, I know a lot of people getting stuff from Timu, but
Yeah.
no, that's from Shuzan. That was my treat just before my eye test.
Nice. Slippers.
So
Makes
yeah,
sense. Eye
exactly.
test, slippers. I can see the connection.
Do you not wear slippers?
No, actually, what I do wear, however, they're just by
Yes.
here. They're not on my feet.
Right.
They were just normal shoes,
Right.
which eventually they actually do have the back part of it,
Oh God, that really, really annoys me when people do that.
but these are the ones that started getting holes in, so they just became just like walk around the house in or
Right.
on the thing. But I do have a normal pair of the old slips on, which are still
Okay.
normal and okay.
Yeah.
But those are because I got like a pair of boots, not the sort of the sort of beigey. They look like workman boots, but they're that beige color.
Yeah.
Which I bought way back, kind of like Timberlands almost, but they're not really.
Yeah.
I bought them months and months ago, but I just never needed to wear them because obviously the weather's been fine, so we're wearing those easy, nice ones. But of course, it's got a bit not as good recently, so I've actually started wearing them. I've worn them, I think, more in the past week than I've worn them most probably since I bought them. So I'm
Yeah.
finally getting to use them. Just it's good to plan ahead.
That's why I had to get slippers because up until now I've not had to wear socks around the house and just been wearing sliders, and they've been nice and easy. And
Well, I've got a pair of those.
you can't wear socks with sliders because it's just not.
I don't know. I
It's just
tried to
not
wear my sliders without socks and just felt wrong.
right.
So, but I'd only wear them around the house in it because
Yeah.
I've seen the youngsters wear sliders with socks. And you're like, dude, no. What's next? Sandals and socks? I mean, no. That's just
All
no.
sorts of wrong.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yes. Anyway, so that's my world of excitement this week, and my goodies, my treats.
Your goodies.
What have you done to treat yourself this week, Andy?
Well, I've spent because obviously I've been off for a week,
Yes,
as
obviously.
long-time listeners will know, or viewers. Hello.
You don't mind if I plunge my coffee while you
You go
telling
plunge
these
in.
anecdotes?
Sorry, it's a background noise, so you'll get cut out
No,
anyway.
no, it's just. There we go. Yeah,
Little plunger.
it's got its little cozy on to keep it warm.
I'm just expecting coffee to just fly across the
No, I'm
screen.
doing this very carefully. I'm not.
Crap.
It's not going to be one of those kind of YouTube videos. I'm not going to end up on someone's TikTok compilation.
On their Fail Army compilation.
Yes.
Yeah, so this week, Have I actually bought stuff this week? Yeah, I did actually. I bought the next of the Asterix books, or the
Oh,
Omnibus book, so which is basically what would have been issue 4, 5, 6, and that's as
right.
enjoyable as one would expect it to be. So I've been reading that mostly all week, to be fair. What else have I got this week? Not a whole lot, really, to be fair. Considering it's my week off, I seem to have spent quite a bit of money, but I can't quite work out what on because I don't think I've bought anything necessarily that I don't know. What have I spent money on? Stuff, apparently. A
Have
few
you
new.
been? Have you basically just been hedonism bot from Futurama all week and just sat around with your ass in the city ordering takeaways every and
I
get
have had a few takeaways because you just
get
like,
some slaves to come in and feed you grapes or whatever. So
mm,
yeah,
yeah, I wish. No, no. I've spent a bit of time out in the country, which technically is only like 20 minutes away. But
right.
this place I've been visiting, it was a chapel which has been converted into a house, and it's amazing. And it's just, as I say, it's only 20 minutes away from where I am, really. But well, in a car. Um, but it just feels it's when I'm there, I'm in the mountain stuff. I was like, it's hard to believe that Bridge End is only 20 minutes that way. So I've
Yeah,
not really done a whole lot this week, really. I've obviously watched a few episodes of Prisoner,
oh,
not that many as I would
right.
normally. I'm working my way through Green Grass, which of course is the sequel series to Only Fools, and I'm enjoying it. People
Yeah,
told me it's a bit rubbish, and someone told me that like by season two, it's got a very Vicar Dibley vibe to it, which that's fine because I love Vicar Dibley. But I find that's true of season one already. There's a definite Dibley. I mean, it's country
it's
city man
country.
ends up in the country, so obviously it's
Yeah,
going to have that
country
same vibe.
bumpkins
Yeah,
and the like. Yeah,
and
I've
I
only
mean,
seen a few episodes, but I did really enjoy them when I watched them.
I like it because like in episode two, because they first get to the country. Obviously, episode one is them leaving Peckham. Episode two is where they start meeting people. And there's a bit where Boise's obviously talking to his staff that he's found he's inherited as well. And he's not happy about that because he didn't think he needed staff, but apparently he has staff. And they're all like, by the time Boise starts thinking, one of them, the farm manager, he goes, "Oh, I think he thinks we're a bit thick." And the other was like, "Oh, I know. Let's just let him keep thinking that, shall we?" So it's quite clearly set up on purpose that they're actually very smart and they know what they're doing. But Boise, being a bit of a toff from Peckham, thinks he knows better, so they're just letting him think that. And yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know, it's working. It's obviously like really cliched now, and there's certainly moments where you're like, ooh, because I think there was definitely some sort of gay gag in one of the episodes the other day, and I'm like, maybe not, but
yeah, because it's
as
not
you know, I don't get offended by these things.
it's not all that old, is it? But that was the thing. I remember
No, this is
watching it when
like,
it came out and thinking, "This is it's mildly amusing," and I found it funnier than I ever found Only Fools.
hmm,
But I also found it was quite old fashioned.
yeah,
So
but
it
then it's the
felt a bit more
countryside.
like it was the sort of thing that probably should have been made and broadcast on UK Gold because
Uh,
it's kind of always a bit old fashioned.
Yeah, but then it's meant to be, isn't it? Because the whole point is in a country, and they're meant to be kind of stuck in the past a little bit, and that's kind of the whole gag, isn't it? Really. But yeah, it's enjoyable. I find it amusing. I'll keep with
Cool.
it. Uh, Obviously, I've been watching Ahsoka as well. Obviously,
Obviously,
did I hear a cat meow me then?
I
I did. One
yes,
second. One second. I
right.
will cut this bit.
Will you? Okay.
I might not cut this bit. Actually, I might leave this bit on.
Oh God,
Hello,
I hate it
baby.
when he does that.
Hi.
Right.
Oh, did you get
So
rid
it's just you and me again. Uh, I've already done my bit. I haven't got anything else to tell you, have I? I mean, I suppose I can make stuff up like Michael Gambon used to in interviews. Oh, he's back now with his pussy.
What? Michael Gambon's back.
And Michael Gambon's
That
dead.
was topical, wasn't it?
It was, yes,
Unintentionally. You got to
indeed.
where it's dry. Go on,
That's it.
baby.
File the cat up on the bookshelf somewhere.
All right. Yeah, she sits up there. She'll just happily lay there now. You just chill, baby.
Oh,
No?
he's so
You're
good with
thinking
his
of what to
cats.
do. No, there she goes. Ready? Thump.
Thump.
She didn't want to lay there.
No.
She's obviously thinking more food, so she's going to go around to every bowl in the hope that there's some food. So, what was you saying before we got distracted by
I
cats?
don't know. I think we covered green grass, and you
Yeah,
were
we definitely done
and
green
with
grass.
Ahsoka.
Oh yeah, so yes, Ahsoka. Yeah.
Ahsoka. Yeah.
Okay, so I also have been watching Blurred Vision. I've also been watching Ahsoka. I've been enjoying it actually. I think it's for me, it's one of the better of the Star Wars TV shows they've done recently.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's up there with Obi-Wan. But then that's because I think I might have said this in a previous podcast, actually, or chatcast, that for me, Star Wars is about the Jedi. I'm not the intergalactic war and all this stuff like Andor and Rogue One and all that. That interests me way less because Star Wars was never really about that. That was just a backdrop for Jedi and laser swords and all that stuff, especially as a kid, because that's really what Star Wars was. Um, so I get a little bit like bored by Andor in particular because obviously that goes way too far into it for me. And I'm like, no, you got enough of it in Ahsoka that's interesting, but you still got the Jedi stuff, which is obviously, as I say, for me, is what Star Wars is. Putting the two together, that's what makes Star Wars Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm enjoying it. I'm liking the story. I think it's very interesting. Although I do wonder if they probably should have just called it Rebel Series 5 and done with it.
Yeah, I've seen a
Because
few comments on
honestly,
social media about that. It just,
because it really is, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean, I know Ahsoka is still the lead, although not last week, because of course it was actually all about Ren and that. But yeah, but no, I'm enjoying it. It's definitely working for me, so I'm happy to see where this all goes. It'd be
good.
interesting.
Me too. Yes,
So, done Star Wars.
yes,
Shall we do the actual? If I stop moving, I'll start getting blurry. Maybe. Autofocus. It's useful, except for when you sort of keep moving back and forth. Anywho, oh look at your Doctor Who mug.
yeah.
So we've
It's
done Star Wars, we've done Doctor Who, but when only approval
it's a
due,
Peter Davison one.
we've got help
It's a little
here.
bit faded these days, but
Oh,
it's
old
for God's
school.
sake. Oh, I'm no good at this.
Look, it's okay. The good thing is, if you ever watch these things back, right, what you'll find is now you're not talking, you are up there in the corner when you're not talking,
Yeah,
and we're getting more pit mode. Probably getting at least that much of the picture, which you can't see because obviously when we're filming it, we only have a narrow vision. But when it's one day, you should watch one back. I know you don't like watching yourself back, but just so you'd be like, oh, that's what's happening. Well, of course, viewer, you know this because you are watching it, and you can see that when he went that far with the cup, you could see it perfectly well.
yes.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well,
Unless
unless
you
they
went
put it on the
really off
background while they're
camera.
doing the tea or something, but
Well, this is it. Like, next time, I'm going to be doing this one day, if I remember. When you're talking about what you think of Star Trek, I'll be doing this. Look, one way. I'll be going like that because I know that you're down there, and I'll be going poke, poke, poke.
right.
And you just see me up in the corner, and they'll be like, what's he doing up there? I'll be like, one day. Anyway,
One day.
anyway, let us get on to Necessary Evil, shall we?
Necessary evil,
All right then.
yes.
So, Tim, Mr. Noob, still, kinda.
Yes.
Hello, Cat. What did you think of A Necessary Evil?
This was a wonderful episode. Really, really was. It showed me that the series still has a lot of surprises. But apart from that, the main part of that, I think, for me was from a presentation and narrative perspective. Because, stop it.
Tickling your ear.
I hope not. I don't like that. Nobody gets away with that. No. It was. I'm not so good on the whole genre thing. I don't know whether it was film noir particularly, but it was filmed and told in such a way that was really engaging and interesting, and I loved it from start to finish. It didn't feel like a Star Trek episode, but at the same time, it really did, which is kind of a bit odd. But lovely to see Odo in kind of center stage like that. and give him a proper detective story to do again, and interesting as a kind of give him more of a backstory and add to Kira's backstory as well in a way that I think potentially I was thinking about this just in the sort of in the toilet break between watching the episode and recording this, and I'm thinking it didn't necessarily tell us anything that we didn't really know about Kira, but it gives us a very specific example of her behaviour that actually makes what we already kind of knew a lot more, or it brings it into like sharp relief. We've got a very specific example now of, and we know that necessary evil, basically, that that she was capable of, potentially still is, so it's really, really good piece of character development in that respect, even though it doesn't really tell us anything that all it does is kind of embellish what we already knew.
What I think, just jumping off what you're saying there, and you can get back to your thoughts, but I'm just thinking that had this story been told earlier in season 1, I'm not sure it would actually worked as well, because what you're saying, that obviously it's, as you say, it's revealing stuff about Kira that we kind of knew, not specifically, but in a generic sense, we knew she's been very clear of what she's done in the past.
Yes.
Not specifics, but certainly in generic, she was a terrorist and she was, whatever. But had this been a story they broke like in early season 1, which I doubt they would have done because obviously they were still working stuff out, I wonder if it would have had as strong as impact, because now we know Kira more and we're seeing her soften up a little bit. Like the Kira in the present day in this story, you're seeing a much softer side of her, because obviously she's spent a year and a half away from all this shit now, and she's starting to feel the other side of her as well as others are. Whereas Kira in the beginning of season 1 was still quite antagonistic and brash and all these things.
I think so. I think you're right.
Actually, I reckon Nana would have played the flashback a lot harder as well, because even flashback Kira in this came across, I want to say soft, but more layered, I suppose, than maybe she would have been had they done this a lot earlier.
Maybe. I mean, I certainly got differences in the character, but I think you're absolutely right. I think we as the audience and as a regular audience, we have to have already fallen in love with Kira Nerys. Otherwise we can't forgive it. Even though we know that in her past she was an underground operative and blah blah blah, and it's been mentioned, I think, previously. I can't think of specific examples. I'm sure it's been mentioned that there were kind of like terrorist things that happened, and not necessarily atrocities, but it's obvious.
She's made it very clear several times that she was a terrorist. Because remember, beginning of the season, actually, that episode 2, I think it was episode during the siege, or was that episode 3? Whatever it was.
Episode 3,
when she goes off with Dax, she's very much like, this is what I used to do.
Yes.
I used to do this, and sometimes you have to break the rules because you're no longer, you don't have the luxury of being Starfleet now. So it's nice to get into that a bit more. Yeah,
and I think coming now is it's safe, because it doesn't, faced with the truth of what she's done in this particular instance, it doesn't now. I don't think it sours our view of her. Whereas early on in season 1, I think that we would have taken a lot longer to warm to the character, and because there would automatically have been almost a wall there that needed to be broken through between her and the audience. So yeah, that was good. A lovely integration of the now with the 5 years previously.
Mhm.
Good to see what the station was like with the Cardassians running it. And again, just not in a heavy-handed way, just seeing a bit of everyday life there and the way that the Bajorans were treated and stuff as well. It just
I do have
all
one
helps.
point about that.
Hmm.
I'm letting you lead here because you're reminding me of things I want to talk about. I can't remember. I mean, you'll know because obviously this is your first watching, whereas I'm obviously got information throughout the entire series, and I can't quite remember if they've already mentioned it was an ore processing plant before. We knew it's an orbital Bajor because that's where it was when we first saw it, but I can't recall if this is the first time we find out what its purpose was precisely.
Yeah, I don't. I noted that, and I noted that potentially as new information in this episode. So, I think if it has been mentioned before, it's not been.
It's just sort of in
It's
passing,
not registered,
right?
in my memory bank, as it were.
Well, see,
So,
that leads me to question because I'm watching. I mean, dramatically, it's all great. I mean, all of it's great. But I do wonder when I'm watching, thinking, how does this work? Because there's people literally living on this station in the past, right?
yeah,
Clearly.
shops
Um,
and stuff.
it's in the orbit of Bajor, and if it's just a processing plant for processing the ore that they get off the planet, it seems a very odd way of doing things. Like, so you're basically mining all this shit on Bajor, and then you have to then ship it up,
Shipping it
presumably
up to
in
it. Yeah.
fairly slow ships, a couple of hours, I imagine, at least. Because, well, at least 2 hours journey, I imagine,
Yeah.
just to get processed in space. That
And this all
seems.
comes there from other places, moons.
Well, I suppose, yeah, because they were ransacking all of Bajor, so I suppose they would have done the moons too. But even then, it's still, you know what I mean? It doesn't seem practical to me.
Yes.
I mean, having a space station orbiting a planet they've raped and all these pillaged and all this, that's fine. I get that because that's their station. But that it's a mining process in place. It's just like, it seems a bit of a weird setup. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. This is it. I don't know if that was the intent when they first devised the show, or if this is something
Hmm.
they've only come across, developed like it recently. But it always strikes me as a bit of an odd setup to do, and also because, like in present day, it's basically like a local town. You know, you've got a town sheriff, you've got the administrator, all these things, and that's fine because it's in its own little secluded bubble almost now, where people are passing through. So that makes sense as a hub of not a hub of activity, a port in
Yes.
where people are going from place to place. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
He's got he's very much got a feeling of a port, hasn't it?
Yeah, and that fits the present of the show. But
Yeah.
the mining thing is, I I don't know. I just watch it and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Hmm. Does it drag you out of the moment? Is it that much of a
It
distraction?
can do occasionally. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to mention, I'm just watching like everything going on around them. Like I said, having their conversations, and it's obviously dirty and filthy and all these things, and that's nice. It's again visually very different, which is absolutely great, obviously, because you
Hmm.
need that contrast. So as a
Exactly.
viewer, you immediately know you're back in the past. I mean, not only do they have the sort of more grey filter, but straight away, just because of the background, you know you're no longer on the station. You're on, you're not on DS9 now. You're on Terra now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it takes me out necessarily, but it certainly makes me drift away a little bit as I'm kind of like this. I don't. I mean, like any
Yeah.
any
It's a piece of logic you've got to try and justify to
yeah,
yourself, and
and
so
I think
you
that's
end up. We've had this a couple of times. Oh, I've had it a couple of times
yeah,
so far in some of the episodes where uh, I'm spending time trying to kind of work things out in my head
yeah,
rather than paying attention
mm,
to the episode, which is playing out before me. I didn't on this occasion, but actually, you mentioning that now, I can see that there's a potential kind of logical kind of issue
It's
there.
just yeah, logistically, it's just like I just don't. But
Yeah.
again, these things happen in anything you watch, TV, film, whatever. There's obviously, that's the whole point. I mean, books are the same, obviously. If it's not plotted well and planned well, I'm out of focus again. Not that the people listening on Spotify will know this. But it can take you out, because then you're trying to work out, does this make sense? Because I'm not sure it does. And of course, as soon as you start and trying to work it out like that, it can take you away from what you're meant to be watching. Oh, sorry, viewer. Just need to. There we go. Oops. No.
Yeah, just bitch slap the viewer.
Oh. But hey, it made me in focus, so that's fine.
I liked. Moving on.
Before we get any accusation of viewers, yeah.
I liked I liked the fact that they were the costumes and stuff were sufficiently different without being sort of ridiculously outlandish. Like Odo's costume was different in the past, and it's slightly more kind of I suppose slightly more defined. It gave him a different silhouette. So which again I think assisted in the when we were knowing whether it was in kind of present day or the past, which can obviously Kira with her longer hair, and stuff as well. So it's that was all good. I did love the constant repetition of the you're the guy that does the Cardassian neck thing. I do really want to see him do the Cardassian neck thing now, and I'm assuming that we probably never get to see it, because it's the sort of thing that you just wouldn't.
Running gag that you'll never.
Just want to.
What you imagine's more interesting.
It's probably much better and more impressive or more amusing in the mind of the viewer.
Absolutely,
that it would ever be if manifested.
I think so.
So that was that was great. I did, and So in terms of, because we normally talk about A and B plots, don't we? And I suppose in a way the B, well, trying to work out which is the A plot and which is the B plot, because they kind of 5 years ago you got a murder investigation, which presumably in theory should be the B plot, but you got the issue now with
what was on
Quark and that awful seedy pre-credits sequence that I thought had to be a holodeck sequence and wasn't.
It's just Quark.
So that should be the A plot, but actually there was a lot more time spent on the B plot than there was the A plot, if you think about that. But they did again just dovetail nicely at the end, because they came together in just perfectly, so that Odo was finally able to resolve the B plot based on what happened, what he learnt from the A plot.
Yeah, because what happened, because the whole past and the present bits, although they obviously we know they're connected clearly. By the end of it, it is quite clearly it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So like, it turns out the entire point of this episode is, why was Kira on the station? That's literally that entire plot of, turns out it was Kira who did this in the first place. And it doesn't diminish, but I think it's very well played out. If I was going to single out a B plot, I would probably single out the whole Quark Rom thing. Because that was
actually that's
that's fair enough. It wasn't like a huge B plot like normal, but it was definitely a thread that was played. It's comedy thread too.
I think we've kind of got there's kind of three, almost three threads of that all kind of coming together, haven't we? So I suppose you've got you could say a present and a past, and then the B plot as the other present. And again, there was some lovely moments of humour in that, which
there was some really funny,
which were just very natural. They just occurred. I love that. They just occurred naturally out of the action and out of the characters.
The whole Rom getting the bar, that was hysterical.
Yeah, and it's
you just say your brother, which means you lost the bar.
and it helps the overall effect because what's it's quite intense what was going on anyway in that kind of I was going to say Agatha Christie, but it's not really Agatha Christie because it's a bit grim and
written better, frankly.
for that. So it's you got that, and that's all that kind of very heavy stuff going on, and it's just nice to have those little light moments, but in a way that they don't drag you out or they don't seem tacked on. It all works very nicely together. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I wouldn't say I'll have more of it because I don't think another episode like that would quite work in the same way. So I mean, if it's the sort of thing they try again, fine.
They will.
But
there's a sort of sequel coming up, like quite a way off, I think, but
okay.
It's not a sequel in terms of story, but they do go back to Terok Nor times just to solve another mystery, which is kind of connected, but only connected in the sense of it. The aesthetics are the same.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Very different story.
But that's good then, because that means that they're keeping they've got a style for those kind of stories, and they stick to it. I love the fact that at the moment each week we're getting something that seems to be kind of very different from what we had the previous week, and just in case the viewer doubts, we do. Well, I certainly only ever watch these when we're recording these on week to week, so they are new to me, completely new to me on these Saturdays. We are just getting something very different each week, but at the same time, it manages to still be a coherent series that it doesn't feel like it's an anthology series at all. It still feels like it is.
I think
it is a coherent series because it takes the characters forward each time. Just in very slightly different narrative and presentation ways, but it's really, really good.
I think with these sort of shows,
I'm glad you forced me to watch this.
You're welcome. Well, I'm glad because although it's funny, these other shows I'm watching, I'm thinking, I wish me and Tim were doing this now. So we may end up with sideshows. You'll have no free time at all.
I have no free time anyway. You know that.
That's true. I can't make it any worse.
This is my hour and a half of free time on a Saturday.
Wow. This is it, folks. Yeah. What I was going to say, a thing I like particularly about this episode, because obviously in the beginning of the series, we saw all the characters meet each other, for the first time, obviously, but not Kira, Odo, and Quark, because they were already on the station. But we saw that they were already there, but all the new guys came in, so everybody got to meet everybody. So it's nice. And again, it works better now because we know them, that we get to see them meet each other. These three people who are already there. And you get to see the building blocks, or at least initial stages of the relationships that we now know. Like, for instance, that you get to see Kira call him Constable for the first time, which becomes obviously an affectation and eventually becomes just kind of his title that everybody uses. And that was quite nice. And get to see Odo and Quark meet for the first time. And you watch a scene, you're like, this pretty much sums up everything that's going to be them, really, isn't it? They're going to be antagonistic, but you can see they kind of have a sort of bizarre respect for each other straight away as well.
And then you've got the wonderful kind of irony of the fact that Odo needs Quark's life to be saved in order to to basically contribute towards the denouement of the episode as well. So it just I love the way they kind of force those little sort of ironies into the relationship.
I like
you, but I still need you.
I like, and you saw this. Your reaction to this was quite funny. Odo's introduction to Kira, and Kira thought he was like chatting her up, propositioning her, and I like the way. This is what I mean about how I don't think, had this been earlier in the series, like literally beginning of season 1, that even the flashback stuff would have been written probably quite differently, because there's a softness to their introduction that I don't think would have been there had it been written a year and a half earlier. Because obviously the characters know that, the writers know the characters. I do think maybe their initial interaction was a little too soft, a little bit too, not playful, but Kira certainly was being very chilled about it all. I mean, she kept saying stuff like, you're either working for them or you're working for us. But her body language wasn't as aggressive as maybe it should have been for the time.
Okay.
But I don't know, I get maybe that's just because the actors are so comfortable with each other now that they maybe didn't quite play it as strongly as maybe they should have done to, show the difference. Again, the dialogue's there, but the performances to me don't quite sell where they're at as characters. Kira certainly at that point should have been a very angry person, just generally. Basically like she was when we first met her, because she was really angry and pissed off of everything at that point. And of course at this point she's in the middle of it all. So I think, and you know me, I never want to criticize Nana's choices, because obviously I think she's fantastic. But I do feel that maybe she didn't quite play it as hard as she could. Or maybe in original take she did and the director asked her to soften it up. I guess we'll never know. But I don't know.
I didn't really get I didn't get a sense of that myself.
No?
I really did get a sense of there being a difference.
Okay.
And a lot of it was just in the face and just a much harder, just harder expression, I think.
Well,
So
again, maybe it's...
I didn't get that feeling myself watching it for the first time.
Maybe for me it's just because I've obviously watched it so many times. I'm not possibly seeing that. I don't know. Maybe I suppose that's possible, because obviously I do know the characters as well as actually better than the writers do at this point, because obviously I know what's coming. So maybe I'm just not. I don't know. Maybe I felt too
there is always a risk that you kind of imprint.
Yep, absolutely.
On what you're seeing anyway, just from over familiarization, as it were. So
that's definitely a very, very strong possibility. But then again, I'm apocryphal Andy, so I could be talking absolute crap on purpose.
Well, you could be.
So I could be just absolutely being completely opposite to what I really think about this episode, and I actually fucking hate it. But no, of course not. But then again, I'm apocryphal. Who knows? We'll have a better name for me next week. Maybe.
Well, yeah.
Maybe. Tim chose this name, so it's not my fault.
Andy made us do it.
No, you started it when you responded to Mr. Valentine.
Well, yeah, that was different.
I saw that as like... And viewers, listeners, if you want to know what we're talking about, all you got to do is go to Tim's Twitter, look up replies, and scroll, because by the time you get to this, it'll probably be like about 10 million to scroll through. So, happy hunting.
I'm not on social media that much.
Well, so yeah, I suppose it wouldn't be too hard to
track. It might still be very near the top.
1, 2, 3, there it is.
Yeah. So...
I don't know. You seem to
it was on Valentine, so that's all right. That was that was a good result. So
he wrote that Brigadier Knife Doctor one, didn't he? Or was that Roy Gill?
Did he? I thought it was Roy Gill.
It might be Roy Gill. Actually, thinking about it, I always get those two confused for some reason. I do not know why. I don't know.
They're definitely not the same person.
No, this is definitely true. Oh, incidentally. If I were able to, I'd cut this and put this back in an earlier segment of this video, but we haven't quite got that ability yet. One day, and if I get that ability, I'll be completely rewriting history. Because let's face it, that's the done thing these days. Hello, Republicans / conservatives. Well, the politicians seem to do it all the time, literally every day. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. Haha. Well, now you're going to find out. One thing I have started doing this week, well, yesterday actually, or got back to after a wee bit away, back to the Bernice Summerfield stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Because I'm sure I've mentioned I'm actually listening to him from the beginning because I've only listened to
Yes.
a handful. And of course, it's like 25 years worth of stuff to listen to. Or more.
Yeah.
Is it 25 years to celebrate?
25 years. There was,
25,
there were promotions
Purely
about it this
coincidentally,
week.
because I didn't know there's a promotion when I bought this one. But now I'm like, oh, that's what the promotion was. Cool. Only £2, but £2's £2. And so I'm on series 2. So I just
Right.
finished Secrets of Cassandra yesterday. I started it a little while back, but I just didn't get into it. Because season 2, as they say on Finish Big, has this bizarre thing of in the Dragon's Wrath. Have you listened to most of them, or
No, I've hardly listened to any of them.
oh, you just written for them?
I've just written for them, but yeah.
I love that. No, I just written for them. I don't listen to them as well. I ain't got time for that.
Well, I've heard some of the later ones. There was
Brilliant.
there was like a third or fourth series I had when when they did like the Poison Seas with the Sea Devils, and there was one with Draconian Rage,
Yeah.
Death from the Daleks. And I've got the Crystal of Cantus with the Cybermen and the Relics of Jigsaw with the giant robots.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So you've
so
listened to
I
some,
tended to pick up the ones that had direct Doctor Who links at the
which of
time.
course is
But,
exactly why they did that.
yes, indeed,
Absolutely, 100%.
yeah,
But yeah,
people
so
like those.
end of series 1,
Right.
there's a bit of a gap between the second to last and the last one of the series, which was the last of the novel adaptations from the New Adventure stuff. And apparently went through a bit of a troubled production. And by all, they decided, because it was like a heist kind of thing, they decided to do a sort of James Bond-esque theme tune for it with somebody. I don't think it's Lisa Bowerman. It might be, but I don't think it is her. Hopefully not, because I think it's awful. But that's not really the singer. The song is just terrible. And it doesn't even fit Dragon's Wrath. As much as they're trying to make it, it's like, oh, this is just, oh, I can see what you're doing, but it's terrible. I don't know who made that decision, but very bad call. But the people who did this and were doing the production, the sound design for Series 2 are the same people who did the Dragon's Wrath one. And apparently, they did not realize, or maybe the Series 2 people didn't realize that the Dragon's Wrath theme was not meant to be the theme for the series. It was just meant for that one story. And so Series 2 has this theme on every story.
Okay.
And you start, you're like, that's what the fuck? And it ends with the theme as well, where it's this person singing. You're like, no, this no. But on the plus side, I've also now started because the Big Finish books, certainly in the early days, were part of the ongoing story. So you kind of need to listen to or read the books if you want to get the full story.
Yeah.
And of course, in Series 2, the setup for the Braxiatel collection is in a book, not in an audio.
Right.
Which is it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would have made it in an audio, where I imagine would be the one that would sell the most. But they did it in the book, which is thankfully an audio book now. So at least I get to listen to it.
Oh, yes.
Which is the Doomsday manuscript, I think, is the first one. Right. So I'm listening to that. So yeah, that's what I've been doing this week. Well, yesterday. And it's Lisa reading it, so at least it feels like a Bernice book. But oh my, I've got to say this right. I know that Doomsday Manuscript is the first story to introduce the Braxiatel collection as an actual thing, not just a name. But Justin Richards really goes into detail in that first chapter. And I'm just like, yeah, I didn't get a full picture of that at all. I'm just like kind of bored. Because you could have introduced it through the characters as you went. You know what I'm like.
Yes.
I'm very much like, introduce it when it's relevant. Make it when it's relevant, and then people will get a better picture. Don't dump it all on them straight away, because no one's going to take this in. Especially when it's been read to you.
Yeah, I can see that. Wasn't the Braxiatel collection first mentioned in Theatre of War?
No.
I thought they was in
the mentioned, but the very, very first time it was mentioned was in City of Death.
Oh, City of Death. Yes, of course. Yes. Romana mentions it. Yes.
Romana mentions it. Yeah, that's right. Yes, because they're talking about the various artists, like the Louvre and blah blah blah.
Yes.
And of course, so it probably would have been mentioned. Certainly, Braxitel, I feel sure. Actually, absolutely thinking about it, because this is all post New Adventures now, of course. So Braxitel as a character has appeared in the book certainly a few times. I think he does appear as a character. I think in Theatre of War.
I'm sure he's I'm sure
He
he's in
might.
Theatre of War, and it mentions the I think that's the first mention in the New Adventures of the Braxitel
It could
collection.
well be, because I know he also appears in at least in a Empire of Glass, which is the first Doctor story, which is the one where
Oh, he does.
it's
Yeah,
basically revealed that he's the Doctor's brother.
yeah.
Which I don't know if the Bernese audios ever actually touch upon that, but I imagine they must at some point. I imagine, because
Rings a bell.
it is who he is, so you might as well kind of mention it. But anyway,
Yeah.
we're not actually going through the Bernese stories. Sorry,
No,
I would cut this out and
another
just
discussion for another time.
yes, that would be another one. Yeah, we'll do that one as well. We'll add that to a list of things to go through. 25 years of Bernese, that could take a while, because there is a lot.
It would, yeah. Considering we're only still near, we're not even halfway through season 2
nowhere
of
near. We're on episode
DS9.
8 of 26, I think. So we've
Lovely.
yeah. But see, this season's got some good stuff, so don't worry about that. But anyway,
Yeah.
so this episode, we both loved it. Yeah, I think it's
We
the
did.
upshot of that. I mean, there's a
Yes.
few, as I say, logistical issues that on the setting of the past stuff, but yeah, I think it does well. I like, it represents the cast before. Now, am I wrong in thinking that we barely saw anybody else in this episode other than Kira, Odo, Quark, Cisco probably at some point? I forget. I'm sure he must have appeared
Cisco was
early
in
on.
it very briefly. Bashir was in it very briefly, saving Quark. Dax was in it very briefly.
O'Brien's off filming a new film, probably.
Yeah, and that was it, I think.
Yeah. Which again shows that they're willing to do something. That's what I was going to say earlier when you said about how they're still doing stuff differently. Each episode feels something different, but still feels part of the whole. I was going to say, I think there can be a risk, and New Trek is certainly guilty of this in places. Certainly, Strange New Worlds, I think, is guilty of this, where they try so hard to do something different each week that sometimes they try so hard to be so different and give the audience something really different to look at that you're like, now it's too much of a difference from previously.
Yeah.
It's feeling a little bit you're trying too hard. Whereas this show, certainly, it may be different later in the series. It depends on your perspective, obviously, but certainly at this point, they're not trying like too hard. They're just, it seems to me, what's going on with DS9 at this point in its history, at least, is they're more concerned about telling good stories.
Yes.
As opposed to pushing boundaries of how can we be different this week.
Yeah, and it's got what I think it's got is it's got its own coherency and consistency, but within that there is sufficient room for a variety of presentation and storytelling, which keeps things fresh for the viewer without the risking what you've just said of just pushing things too far. You've got to have a base level of consistency throughout. You've got you can set reasonably rigid boundaries and still have a certain amount of flexibility within that. And it sounds to me like potentially whoever's running, was you say Strange New Worlds?
Yeah.
Potentially the showrunners for that have perhaps just not set those boundaries.
Well, I would say it's more a case of, which is indicative of most franchise TV shows at the moment and films. It's always about, it seems to me, it's always about how much continuity you can put in one episode to please the fans, because obviously it's all about pleasing the fans. And what can we do this week that's different that we can do as a big gimmick to get more viewers, as opposed to just trusting the product to be itself, be a good strong. Because I think yes, there's there's a fairly large vocal section of any fandom that just wants to be pleased all the time. Oh, they're doing this for us. But I think there's probably a quieter, larger section of, I don't know if the fandom so much as the mainstream audience at least would probably be more interested if it was just solid storytelling first. And that's what would drag them back more than all these moments of let's please the fans, let's have a new gimmick. And I think certainly back in this time period of Star Trek and franchise media, not today, like where we are in Star Trek 93, it wasn't about that. It was primarily about let's tell good stories and that will get people back. Interesting characters, that will keep people watching. I mean, occasionally there's a gimmick, like beginning of season 4 when Worf comes into it, but that's the network sort of pushing it on them. But still, as you'll see when we get there, the producers is like, okay, what story can we get out of this? And how will it feed into what we're doing, more importantly? But, it's obviously a little while yet because that's season 4 and we're only on season 2. So that's a real world 2 years away for us, probably.
Yes.
Maybe. Gosh. We'll see how life is. But anyway, so yeah, I think we're near wrap-up stage because, obviously started a bit later than usual. So if we end a bit later, then hopefully it'll be roughly the right time. So, final thoughts, Tim?
I loved it.
Can't argue with that. Okay, and my final thoughts is I like it. I still think it's a bit overrated. It's one of those episodes people talk about all the time still to this day, 30 years on, which, says a lot about the episode, I suppose. But I do tend to generally have an inclination to shy away from over popular things. I don't know why.
You do.
I have a resistance to like, oh, this is amazing, this is so great, and I'm like, now you make me feel like I don't want to like it so much. So I'm aware that maybe I'm a little bit jaded. Listen, folks, middle age does that to you. You youngsters will know this one day.
Middle age, my ass. Yeah, go on.
Well, okay, over middle age now, I suppose, technically. I'm on the wrong side of middle age, sadly.
You're even jaded about being middle-aged.
I know. God, what does life do to you? I used to be such a chill... Actually, I'm a chill guy, but yeah, life.
What have we got next week then, Andy?
Life. Off the top of my head, I don't know because it wasn't on screen because obviously that was, not obviously, but it was the last episode of the disc. However, let me get my companion. I mean, I could type it up, but let's go old school and look in the actual book, shall we?
Go on then.
Okay.
Get your money's worth out of it.
This beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah.
Look at Cisco. Doesn't he look different?
Doesn't he just? Yeah. If I'd listened to comments I'd seen, I would have been under the impression that DS9 didn't get good until Cisco started shaving his head.
There's this thing in Star Trek. Well, Star Trek started it, but it's true that they say like it's usually when the main character changes their physical appearance, like grows a beard, suddenly everything gets good. TNG with Riker, that's where
Riker grew a beard, yeah.
And that's now become a general.
Yeah,
Cisco grew a beard. Suddenly, DS9 got good. He shaved his head. It got even better. So I'm waiting for certain shows I'm not a huge fan of, Star Trek shows, where I'm hoping that someone's going to go for a great change. And I'm like, yay, it's good again. But, is this? Oh, okay. Yes, that sounded, sorry, really,
yeah.
I'm convinced. Really positive, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, whatever it turns out to be.
It's one of these episodes that's usually better when I watch it than when I think about it. Episodes where you remember, you're like, oh yeah, then you watch, you're like, oh yeah, actually, it's a lot better than I remember it being.
All right, don't think about it then. Just tell me what it is.
It's called, and this could be anything now, it is called Second Sight. What do you think it could possibly be about?
Tell you in a minute, I'm just going to sneeze.
Chew. You didn't need to mute you because the background noise would have cut out anyway.
I know, I muted it, but it was messy.
It's fine. If I talked over it, then you would have gone off in the corner and nobody would have noticed. But since I didn't talk, you were on screen going,
Yes, lovely.
I've completely blurred. There I am.
Second sight. Okay, so this is going to be it's a mystical
First of all,
thing,
whose
isn't it?
episode do you think it's going to be? Now, that's actually going to be a question from now on, because that's actually quite interesting. Because generally, it's usually a character's episode in particular.
Yeah.
So,
don't know.
it's a challenge, isn't it?
It is. I think it's unlikely to be a Quark episode because we've had two. Even though he wasn't in this one very much,
He was still quite an important part.
He was
a
focal point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think it was possibly Kira.
But isn't this a Kira episode we just had?
Well, it is, but that doesn't stop it being another one.
Well, I suppose that's true. She's allowed to have two.
With some sort of Bajoran mystic or something like that. But
that would make sense, being like the prophets and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, you may go with that.
Okay.
You may be right. You may be wrong.
Oh well, I'll find out
in
next
7
Saturday afternoon.
Yes, you will.
Indeed.
Okay, cool. Right. As usual, people, you can find us on the social medias. Links will be below.
Please do. We're very nice people.
Well, we try.
Well, I am anyway.
Rude. We try at least. But yeah, so the links will be down below on the YouTubes. They'll be in the description on Spotify. But yes, check us out. Do give us your feedback, because it would be nice to know what you all think. Not necessarily about us, but certainly about the shows we're discussing. It's always good to hear other people's views, even if we don't agree. And we probably won't. It depends on what we're mad. I think most of us will agree on this episode, because generally it's, as I say, well considered a good episode. So that was us. So until next week for Second Sight, which apparently is about Kira and some Bajoran mysticism, or it might not be, but they might be. I know. If you've watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine, you will know too. But if like Tim, you are a newbie, you're going to have to tune in next week to find out. So until then, I have been the apocryphal Andy.
And I have been, what was I? Tentative Tim Gambrel?
You've been the tumultuous, timorous, tentative truth teller, Tim.
Oh, God, I used up 4 weeks worth of titles.
The challenge is for you to find something new now. You've got a week to find some good ones, ideally something a word that most you'll never heard of, because that's going to be way more fun. We've got a week. Okay. Today we had no notice. Next week
we did, yes. I'll find something that's perfectly cromulent for next week.
Cromulent? Nice. What the fuck's that mean? Relevant, I assume? Interesting?
It's a made-up word from The Simpsons.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, the teachers are talking about something. One of them, Mrs. Krabappel says something, and is it Miss Hoover, Lisa's teacher? She turns around and says, "Oh, it's a perfectly cromulent word," in that wonderful way that they just drop.
And she's like, "Ooh, I must remember that."
like Blackadder does in the dictionary episode with Dr. Johnson. So,
yeah, cool. All right,
yes,
then.
we shall be back interfrastically.
Hey, writers, our job is to make up words, so we're allowed to.
Indeed.
And on that note,
we're spasmodic about it.
Goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye, Duggan! You knew I was going to say that.
I did.